One. Hey y'all. We are still Sunday shift, but we are recording on a Saturday, which is a little disorienting. But how are y'all? How are y'all doing?
I'm excited. What?
You were like the opposite of excited is how you sounded, but I'm ready. What are you excited for? Tell us.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm excited and nervous and apprehensive because we're doing something really huge within the Democratic Party that's going to go down tomorrow, and shenanigans all the way. They're making it hard. We have to fight over every single thing, like making sure our guest speakers, our national guest speakers, have more than a minute and a half to speak. Stuff like that. And it's frustrating. Not sure how it's going to turn out, but I'm just excited that I've gotten this far and I'm able to do something really, hopefully really impactful. And so that's what makes it all worth it. Bow down to you, Tracy, and your national work. But yeah.
No. Well, it's really exciting. I have been following your all of your amazing work on Twitter. So excited to see how it turns out tomorrow.
Thank you. But other than that, I'm chilling like a villain. I can't call it. There's a wonderful post someone made about how to say you're okay, like how you're doing, but you have to say it Black. So a lot of people
I did see that.
It's hilarious. So
I've been using like the feelings chart to be like, no, like in our check-ins to be like, how are you actually doing? Like you actually have to name an emotion, which I'm bad at. So it's been helpful to me. Here we are. Oh, and I got boosted this week. I got a booster shot. It kicked my ass. I'm gonna be real with you. I am pro-vax. I told Sandra when we got our first shots, I was like, you could just stick me in both arms, shake me up like a vaccine cocktail. Like I am in there. I am not. But there was something about that third shot. I was like, damn, I'm about to be on Fox News and be like, don't do it, y'all. No, do it. Please do it. But that third shot, I was like, what's in this? And it's always jarring because I went from feeling awful to feeling like I could run a marathon. Well, not run a marathon, I'm not running, but I could walk a marathon. I was like, oh, I'm great now. Like I was up.
Amazing if you could run a marathon after if you couldn't before. That is some vaccine propaganda.
Yes. Shout out to Inga.
I also got boosted I think a couple days after Tracy did, and I'm just finally feeling okay. I was actually feeling fine, and then all of a sudden I got like a wave of nausea yesterday, but thankfully I had already written up all my GH Sunday shift notes, so that was the most important thing. And I'm also a big fan of the feelings chart. I use that all the time, whether or not my clients want it or not. We're going to talk about feelings.
Hey, I love emotional intelligence. Let's get into it. I feel like we have a lot to talk about. I have a lot of hot takes for this week. That I think are going to be unpopular because I follow, the GH hashtag. So I'm like, I don't feel like this. So I'm ready to be unpopular this week.
Okay.
All right, here we go. So we start the week with Portia and Curtis's date night. They're having drinks with the Savoy while being watched by a man who I have dubbed Cat Daddy Snooper until we actually get a name for him. So Cat Daddy Snooper is clearly interested in Curtis. He asks the hostess about live music, and he generally lurks before heading to GH and being up with TJ and kind of lurking there. So interested to see who he is and what he is here for. Also at the hospital, Liz and Finn contemplate a trivia night, and Austin and Monica have a heart-to-heart. We confirm what we already know, which is that Scotty is the ultimate fucking boomer. Spinelli makes a random appearance to let him know that Liesel's kidnappers used malware to hack his computer, and that's how they were able to trick him into chartering that plane. It was kind of a sweet moment where we find out Scott was Googling Huntingtons because of Brett, but it was also kind of a creepy moment because we have to wonder why he was so worried about Spinelli being on his computer. I don't want to think about it. In any event, that takes Jason and Britt on their own set of adventures. First to the celebration of newly reunited Neva, Nicholas and Ava. Britt asked Nicholas about the Cassidines in Crete in front of Ava, and then asked to speak to him privately to talk about Spencer. Because you know, Nicholas, you are a father, but whatever. Elsewhere in the Savoy, Curtis defends Nita to Jason, hated it. And Portia and Ava have a heart-to-heart. Portia wants to make sure that Trina is safe. She does not mess with those Cassidines, and she does not think Ava was right to have Spencer arrested. All fair points. To reinforce Portia's point on the Cassidines, we see Nicholas make a shady call to Crete. We also find out that Nicholas put Ava in charge of Spencer's trust fund, and that the deal Ava tried to strike with Spencer was that he accept their marriage. Spencer gets lectured by Sonny on the code. No one offers him any help. He ultimately decides to plead not guilty. And let me just say, this is not recap, this is for real. We need to be nice to the public defenders. I didn't like the way that was portrayed. We'll get back to that. Anyway, ultimately, Kevin pays his bail and says that he and Laura insist that Spencer gets a job. Austin drops his lawsuit against the accused. Olivia continues to be in denial about Leo. Sonny and Nina both want to buy Charlie's for Phyllis. Michael has a politician in his back pocket and gets Nina arrested for I don't even know what. To Willow's dismay, Jason goes to Carly and Sonny basically asking for permission to go to Greece with Britt. And then we have action in Greece. The guards turn on Victor for Peter. Valentin is shot. Drew is presumed dead again on screen, even though we know he's alive. Liesl is kidnapped by Peter. Sam and Dante meet up with Jason and Britt. Sam decides to head home because, you know, she is a parent. Victor is trying to cut a deal with the WSB. Robert and Valentin are like, hell no. Anna is like, maybe if you give me Peter. We have a lot of really amazing Vanna moments. Valentin has to head back to the States for exploratory surgery, and it looks like Anna will be by her bae's side. So that was the week. How did you feel about it?
Again, it was it's hard because it's like I'm a cross between super busy and then watching these late at night versus when I normally watch it, and then also a little slow, but so it's hard. There were some great moments in there, but yeah, but it was good. It was interesting to see some of the interactions.
Mm-hmm.
It was a dry ass week for Sprina and Trina fans. So we're definitely going to talk about that. But a pretty angsty week for Vanna. So I was into that. For some reason, Wednesdays just stay like the worst episode. All I know is that my Wednesday notes were like almost nothing. And what they like, the only note I have, for example, for the cues is I wish Ned and Olivia would get it divorced. So it just felt like a really disjointed, strange week, but yay, Vanna. Yeah, that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk faves. Let's start out on a positive note. What was your favorite moment, Tanya?
Well, I finally got my Sonny and Spencer scene.
I thought about you.
Yeah, what's the rule, guys? No attacking family or kids. Hello. And Nick and Spencer broke the rule, and he has to face the consequences. And so Sonny told him that he wasn't going to bail him out. And I think that threw Spencer for a loop. I don't know if it worked the way I would have hoped it would, but at the same time, another favorite moment for me was when Spencer was in the courtroom, was asked if he was guilty or if he was pleading guilty or not. And what changed his mind was Ava walking in and sitting beside her husband and holding his hand. And I think it was interesting to me because one, it pissed Spencer off, but two, I kind of feel like Ava did it on purpose because she knew it would. And so yeah, so it was a good moment for me, and it was a very small moment, but it was an awesome moment. And it, the Sonny Spencer conversation was a highlight for me.
I loved in that conversation with Sonny. He was like, why do you think I'm out here? Why do you think I get off? And he was like, Diane Miller. Like, let's be fucking clear, Uncle Sonny. Okay.
Right. You get away with it because you got a good lawyer. And, let's face it, no one, he doesn't have a good lawyer. Spencer doesn't.
Yeah, that code is not what's keeping you out of prison, Sonny. Don't. I know where you're having like an uncle nephew moment, and it's like, right. Sounds great dialogue wise, but is patently untrue.
I almost wish it was a little longer though, because I really don't think Spencer got the point. Like, I really feel like he still feels like he did nothing wrong. And I need somebody to kind of drill it into him that his actions were wrong, like what he did. And though, yes, I mean, he may have had some justification, but really, I mean, having, using a child to make a point was not okay. And I don't think he would have pled guilty if everybody else wasn't telling him to, because I think he still feels that he's in the right. So there's a little bit of still some immaturity in him, obviously, because he's staying so stubborn about it. And he doesn't think it was funny was like, if I plead guilty, do I have to go back to jail? I mean, yeah. If no one pays my bail, do I have to go back to jail? He's almost not taking this. He's not taking this as seriously as I think he needs to be. Like, that's real. I have never been in a courtroom in my life, and the idea of being in one would freak me out. And yet he's just like, this is just a game. I'm going to get out of this. Someone's going to buy my way out of this. It's no big deal. And that is kind of jarring. And I guess because, if I'm looking at it from a real life perspective, I mean, jail is no joke, and he's treating it like a joke. And I think that's a part of his privilege that he gets to think about it that way. And, that shouldn't be perpetuated, but it's real life, I guess. Some folks like him don't ever see jail as being a big deal because they can get out of it,
I have lots of feelings about that. I'm going to hold them. Sandra,
No.
I'm going to hold them because I have them in other notes. Sandra, what are some of your favorite moments?
Yeah.
Yes. I also have some feelings, thoughts about Spencer pleading guilty and all of that, but I will also hold them because my favorite moment was Valentine and Anna after Valentine was shot. And I'm like, I love how I'm just like smiling, like I'm just cheesing after I said, and Valentine was shot. As all the Anna fans were going into this storyline. The first thing that Valentine does once he gets to safety and Anna's like propping him against the boulder where the moment happens is to ask Anna how she's doing. That's a man who has his priorities straight. He just got shot in the back, but he's like, bae, how are you? I just really, really loved it. And it was also just getting to see Anna's reaction to him being shot and the dynamic between the two of them as she's trying to take care of him. And his speech about Charlotte and the racehorse, and like there's like a thoroughbred racehorse that's, you know, not doing well, and he says like, I want to give him a second chance. I believe that everyone should get a second chance. And it was, I'm just like, yes, I believe that you should have a second chance. I know you threw Ava off the turret. I know you made up a fake daughter for Nina, but Valentine, you deserve a second chance. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about that storyline. And we've talked about why Nina and Valentine didn't really work and why Anna and Valentine do before. But one of the things that I was thinking about was how much Anna actually knows who Valentine is. Like their relationship is based on truth. Whereas Nina never really knew the real Valentine until like they broke up. Like, what is he truly capable of? The kind of man that he really is. Nina was really in love with his potential, but not really in love with the actual Valentine. And so with Valentine and Anna, Valentine has also actually changed. And Anna has no illusions about the kind of man Valentine has been in the past, because she's also been maybe not quite to the level of dysfunctional and devious as Valentine, but like Anna's done some shit. Anna's seen some shit. So I really love those. And of course, like the other Vanna moments later on in the week when she was at his bedside. I mean, Finola Hughes talking to unconscious James Patrick Stewart. I mean, who knew that it could be so riveting? I knew it could be, but still of note. What about you, Tracy?
Yeah, I mean, so this is cue unpopular opinion number one. My favorite moment was messy, vengeful Michael. I love that shit. Michael is a quartermaid, Corinthos, and Carly is his mom. It is like time out for that choir boy shit he was doing. It was boring. Now, granted, this charge, makes no sense. I don't know what it is about. I don't care, but that's what I love. We are watching a soap and Michael is messy. You know, one of my all-time favorite Michael Corinthos moments is when he takes Avery from Sunny and was like, I think I'll call her AJ Quartermaid. Like, that's one of my favorite Michael moments. And so we are seeing like shades of that again. And the only thing unbelievable about a DA charging Nina for a campaign donation is that Nina is rich too. Like, that's the only thing that makes that unbelievable. Not even that they would make up charges, what people do. I mean, don't get me started, but he is looking for a high profile case. So I am wondering if like he's gonna throw Nina under the bus because she is rich and like being like, look at me, I'll prosecute this rich woman for doing this shady thing. Or if he's gonna like tie it back to the Tano. Because even though we didn't really ever see any customers there, apparently it was like a beloved community staple that she is kind of responsible for getting burnt down. So I loved that moment, or I loved watching it because it just gave Michael something to do. So I don't know. What do y'all want to see more of? Or what do y'all? Wait, that was more. What do you want to see? Yeah, what do you want to see more of? What do you want to see more of?
Was that your only one for what you loved? Because you said this is my first controversial opinion. So it's like I want to make sure you put them all out there at the appropriate time.
You're like, we would like for you to get canceled right now in a row.
No, I want to know. But I wanted to comment. I do agree. I mean, I love that. The only thing for me is just like if he, cuts the hair, but Yeah, yeah, but I think it was awesome, and the way they had it set up, like, oh, I'm just working on this campaign, it's no big deal. And then Willow was just like, no, Michael, what are you doing? And then he was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And then he defended himself. He's like, no, she did this and she did that, and I'm just not having it. And I was like, yes. And really tied in with how Carly was telling Willow, like, don't push Michael because he's nice, but don't push him. And I like it because I'm kind of like that too. A lot of people think I'm really nice and sweet, but when I get pissed, I get pissed, and you don't want to see me come after you. And so it was just like, that's me. He is doing me right now, and I love it. So yes.
I mean, and I think there's this other piece that was interesting because, you know, they had this conversation, and I'm wondering how this will impact like that relationship, because, you know, like the first time he like said Nina couldn't see Wiley like a while back, she kind of got mad, and so they decided that anything they do with Nina around custody was gonna be like something they do together. And Michael's like, yeah, this ain't about custody, this is about me getting her locked up some other way. And so and Willow brought it back up like, we should have talked about this. He was like, I mean, not really. Like, this isn't what we talked about that we would agree on. And so it'll be interesting to see if there's like an actual wrench in that relationship. And if this is it. And then, like I said, I mean, Michael is like a rich, privileged white dude. Like, this is exactly what you would expect for him. This is like some Edward Quartermain shit.
Yeah, it also makes me think that Willow has a basic misunderstanding of who Michael is, and that she might have clung to him thinking that he was actually a more upstandable, better guy than even Chase, right? Because Chase went and did this bargain with Austin, and it showed a little bit of depth, right? And so then she was just like, I don't know. I mean, even though, you know, she was totally wrong in what her and Michael did, but I think she has this saint halo on Michael that's a little inappropriate. And so I think this might be like, oh, I don't know who this man is that I'm in love with. Do I like it? I don't know. So
she's definitely created like a character of Michael. Like, she does not know who Michael is. That's clear.
I'm just like, honey, you're not with Chase anymore.
Listen.
And you could have been. And if I were you, I'd be having some buyer's remorse. I would have been having buyer's remorse the whole time. Because I don't even really like generally like wholesome characters. Obviously, like, we all know who my faves are. But like, Chase found his way into my heart.
It was those gray sweatpants.
Sure, it was through the gray sweatpants, but I appreciate other things about him too. So I don't know. I don't have much hope for Michael being interesting in a way that I actually find to be interesting in the future, but I'm open to it. I don't hate it. Yeah, that's how I feel about that. So we talking more?
Yeah.
What do we want more of?
Yeah.
Oh Lord. I wanted more Trina. There was no Trina this week.
Yep.
And her presence was deeply missed. I did appreciate how everyone was talking about Sprina at the Savoy. They were the hot topic. And it just kind of felt like, yeah, this is how life should be. Everyone should be talking about Sprina. Should they be together? Under what circumstances? And I did like Portia's point of view she was offering. And I thought it was interesting that Ava still kind of ships Sprina. I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
She still does. And so I think Ava continues to be reckless in this situation with Spencer, and she's making bad choices. And I think she does want more revenge and like vengeance than maybe she's letting on to Nicholas. But I also, I don't think she's like Spencer's real enemy, but we'll talk more about that later. I appreciated that presencing of Trina, but it's not enough. It's not an actual substitute for her presence. And I think there's a way that the teen story is hinged a lot on Spencer as of late, which makes a lot of sense, right? Like he was also brought in to bring some new energy, and boy, has he ever. And his performances are so wonderful, especially these like really high stakes performances that he's just pulling out scene after scene after scene. But damn, there's like actually only so much feral Spencer I can take without Trina there to balance him out. Like he's just angry, hurt, vicious. Like when he went after him and Nicholas in the courtroom, like I was like, I'm gonna need some aromatherapy. Like I'm stressed out. I need to remember the other side of Spencer. And I think there were like really beautiful empathetic moments. I think Sunny balanced Spencer out, and like we got to see that more vulnerable side of him. But we really needed some Trina in there to provide some contrast, even if it's not them directly together. And it felt strange for her to both not be at the arraignment and for there to be no mention of why she wasn't there. And so I hope that they circle back and address why, because I think there's plenty of good reasons why she could not be there, right? Like she could just not want to go. She could feel torn about what Esme asked her to do, right? Which was talk to Ava. But even just like a brief mention from Joss would have been better than just kind of like leaving it hanging. And I don't always trust them to close the loop on things. So I guess we'll reserve judgment to see what happens next week, but there better be some Trina next week because this is too long without Trina.
Yeah.
And so I hope she was just doing some nice self-care for herself. That's what I'm currently imagining. Like Trina's at the spa, Trina's getting mani-pedi, like scrubbing those calluses off. Like she's having a good time.
That would be the hope. I mean, I think that like to your point, that could have been a piece of like the Ava Portia conversation where she's like, I don't agree with this. My daughter's going to be in the middle of this because she helped find your stalker. And I actually told her not to go to the first hearing or whatever it is. Like that could have been a moment. And I think that speaks to like why some of us get frustrated with the writers, because it's like things like that are left on the table that don't need to be, that could then make the story richer.
Like if there's like shooting constraints because of her schedule, because I know like some people were like speculating about why, and I'm like, I'm less interested in why she's not there, like from a production standpoint, and more like, what are you going to do to work within these constraints to make this make sense? And it would have been very easy to just throw in a line. And
that's right.
I would also like to see more Sunny and Spencer. I felt like that scene. I also was thinking about Tanya. I was like, Tanya's getting her scene. But then I also was like, oh, I'm also getting this scene too. What a gift. And I think their relationship has always been like very entertaining and heartwarming and touching. And it's like, okay, it's a new actor and it's a different kind of relationship. They're also at a different age, but it still felt like a continuation of the same relationship. And I loved when Sunny was talking about Mike and drawing that connection back to Nicholas and his obsession with Ava. And, I think this is something that Tanya, you brought up a lot, is it's like the Cassidyne's men obsession with the women in their life. And I liked Sunny's take on that. He's like, they think they're in love and all of that. And I appreciated, it was a good actual parenting moment when he was just like, yeah, your dad's not shit. And you're just going to actually learn how to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually how you parent an adult, right? It's like, the truth is your dad is not shit. But also, like, you have the responsibility to step up and take responsibility for your life, and then be the kind of person who you actually want to actively, proactively be, instead of being a reaction to your father all the time and expecting him to bail you out. And so I actually feel like that message did sink in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the reason why Spencer pled not guilty.
As he should have. To also be really, really freaking clear before I go into my piece of what I want to see more of, I'm a Spencer apologist. We've like established that. And I really feel like, in the grand scheme of things, the more I think about it, the less I feel how wrong he was. Like, was he right? No, of course not. But like the ways that people are behaving, like, you went after like Avery. Did Avery even know what that was? Like, that was for Ava. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was shady for him to do that, but it's not like he had like he wasn't like chasing Avery around in a fucking fake scream mask in front of all her friends at a party, like his dad did. Like, this is, I don't know. It's just, anyway, I just feel like there's a lot of like conversations around accountability, and I'm like, from y'all? It's like, I'm like that gif of Big Boy from what was that from ATL? Like, I know this ain't who I think it is. Like, y'all are talking about accountability? Stop it. But on, like, for me, what I wanted to see more of, it really sparked it for me when I saw TJ. I was like, oh damn, like, one, I want to see more TJ because I really like the actor, but I also want just more time at the hospital. And there's so many opportunities to do it. Give our girl Terry a storyline. I think that what made the Elizabeth and Finn moment look so stupid, I mean, aside from how dumb it actually was, is that they were talking about trivia, like 2 weeks ago? And so we never see them. And so they come back and you're like, are y'all still talking about trivia? Like, and so there's so much opportunity to like have people at the hospital. There are strong characters who we should be building out at the hospital. It also reminded me, because I was like extremely annoyed by Willow this week. Like, I was over her. I'm like, please go the way of Michael's other girlfriends, which is die. But like, I was over it. Like, I just don't feel like her as a character. Like, I don't feel like she as a character adds anything. And part of it is because of the way that she is written. Like, I have nothing against the actress. Like, she's fine. It is that character has not been written to like a fullness. And I thought that when they had her like start nursing school or something like that would be written into her character and we would see more of that. So like when she was a teacher, she had something to do besides like kind of run behind Chase or whatever it was. Like, she actually was doing something. She had a career. And like she had a career and then she was building a relationship with Wiley. Now we don't have any of that. And so I would love to see Willow at like girls' night with Elizabeth and Terry and Epiphany. Like, bring her in so she's not just in the Quartermain mansion. Like, let her have a career, let her have something else, because right now it's just very annoying. Yeah, and altogether, like, just remember that this is also a hospital show and like build out the hospital characters. And there's like space to do it, and there's a lot of interest. I mean, you can see from Elizabeth fans online, they want their Elizabeth. Give people their Elizabeth. Like, give it. She's been there. I don't like Elizabeth personally, but I don't dislike her so much. I don't want to see her. I understand her importance to the canvas. I understand that she's legacy. Like, give people their Elizabeth. It actually doesn't make any sense to not be leaning into Elizabeth. So more hospital, more TJ, more story that's not Elizabeth and Finn for Elizabeth. And like, show us again that Willow was in nursing school, because I had forgotten about that. What about you, Tanya?
Yeah, I was gonna say I was intrigued by these little nuggets of storylines that they're throwing in now that are not about the Quartermains or the Crentos. So and I don't know why, but there's a phone call from Elizabeth's dad to General Hospital. Why is he calling General Hospital, not his own daughter? I don't know, but I think it was really interesting, and I'm like very intrigued by that, because fans have been asking about Elizabeth's parents for a long time, and we've never gotten any kind of clue as to why they're off canvas, what the estrangement is really all about. And so I'm really intrigued by it, and I can't wait to see where it goes. I'm also intrigued about this, Black man stalking the TJ and Curtis. I'm like, okay, who are you? Why are you asking all these personal questions? And what does that mean? I'm very much intrigued by those little tidbits, those little nuggets. And it didn't happen. These didn't happen necessarily because of a big, drama, like somebody got shot or something like that. It was just like, here's this random stranger coming in asking questions. It's really kind of soft, and and I'm really curious about it. As far as what we already see, what I would like to see more of, I'm actually getting like a lot of you said last week, that the chemistry between Sunny and Nina is interesting to me. And I'm really curious how they're going to clue Carly and Jason in. But again, I understand that's probably not going to come until November, December, the rate they're going on it. But I'm intrigued by their interaction. But I was also excited about the fact that cops came to get Nina, and I'm excited to have everyone find out that it was actually Michael and not Carly that did it, because then they'll be like, this is how Carly's gonna get back at me. Nope, it's not Carly. And so I'm intrigued by that. So yeah, there's some stuff that I'm excited to see more of, and of course always Vanna. I felt so sorry for Valentine in the hospital, because his voice, he was in pain, and his voice changed too. You see, it was more high pitched, more like bleeding. I was like, oh, he's hurting. I felt so bad. But
he was acting.
He was acting. He really being in character. So that was good. I said I did not want to see more of the brainwashing of Drew Lavery, but I am curious, because the way that they ended last week's episode, it almost doesn't seem like he's being brainwashed. Like, I think because I thought it weird that he was in the cell and he was shirtless, and then he was out in the the shootout. Then he had this full on fit, and I was like, how did that happen? And so now we understand why he had a full on fit, because it was a bulletproof vest. And then, but he's like getting in the car knowing that Liesl is being kidnapped. Is that part of his brainwashing, or is this some sort of larger plan that we didn't know about? So I'm like, I'm kind of curious if it's not about brainwashing, if it's about something else. That would make it actually more interesting to me.
Well, Liesl did give him like what was like the kind of like the cheat code of like, think about your kids, and so maybe that's what he's doing.
Maybe he's playing along.
Maybe.
Yeah, because I was going to do a meme about this. I think I did do a meme about how he had kind of felt like he was in the Matrix, just standing in the way, getting shot. Like, do I can dodge these bullets. No, you can't dodge the bullets. You got shot like 5 times. It was hilarious to me. Like, you didn't even try to duck. It was just like, and then he just falls into the water. So it was like, that was the strangest behavior I've ever seen in my life. And I thought it was hilarious. So maybe it was part of some sort of act, like, okay, I'm going to shoot at you, pretend like it hurts, and then fall into the river. So yeah.
It's just actually making me angry all over again that Drew got shot so many times. Valentine got shot, but Drew was trying to shoot Peter with like an automatic weapon and missed.
Oh yeah. So it had to be
Peter's Teflon.
But it had to be like some sort of fake out, because it was like, how do you miss with an automatic weapon?
Because this show is really obsessed with Peter being the most like incompetent, hyper competent villain of all time.
My God, the fact that they let Peter outsmart a Cassadine, get out of here.
And not even the dumb Cassadine.
Not even Nicholas. He outsmarted Victor. Victor, who had gone undetected, faked his own death, got outsmarted by Heinrich. Get out of here. I hate it.
But I hope Victor stays on the canvas as a foil or a potential relationship with Valentine, because, you know, I think that's very interesting too. So definitely want to see more of him in that interaction.
Oh, you will be, because he signed a 6-month contract. So.
Oh, okay. Victor Cassadine Sheffield.
Okay, if it's 6 months, it better be actual 6 months and not him coming on the show every month for a minute and a half like they do. What's that? Tristan Rogers. Like, yeah, they need to have him on more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I can talk about what I want to see less of, because I'm ready to get into it.
Yes.
So I want to see less overall of court equaling consequences. Right now, we have Spencer, Nina, and Victor all facing some sort of charges, while Sunny, Jason, Nicholas, Valentine, blah, 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 all go free. I just need a hard reset on all of the court and crime shit. Like, it's really bad. Like, they're throwing around words like accountability and justice. I'm like, friends, the main protagonist of your show is a mobster who is BFFs with the mayor. Let's cool it on the accountability. Like, it's just not what it is. And I just think that we're losing. So I think that they are leaning too much on like court and like that world for plot lines, and it makes it not interesting. It is laughable for Nicholas to be sitting in the back, because it's also like, we're not seeing a conflict with Nicholas for him to be like, yo, I'm kind of fucked up and I don't want my son to be like me. Like, that would be interesting to me, right? Like, for him to be like, I've actually done all of this wild shit. I don't want my kid to also like follow in these footsteps. And then when anybody brings up to Nicholas that, like, Spencer's doing this because of like your behavior, he keeps talking about how he raised Spencer as a child. This is not what they're talking about, friend. They're talking about you faking your death, coming back, getting with the woman who betrayed him, telling Spencer that you were going to have him work with you to take Ava down, and then you happen to fall in love with her. She dropped it low on you. And now you want Spencer to also feel this way. It doesn't make any sense. And so it's like laughable for then like a Sonny to like be in the background like, oh, I'm not going to help you. You're not going to help your nephew get a lawyer for what? Like, it just, and I think to your point, Tanya, when we talk about like Spencer also knows like he's not going to jail. You know what I'm saying? And I think that there's like a safety net of how wild you can act and how over the top you can be when you actually know that you're not going to jail. And I don't think that has like set in. Like, a night in jail is not prison, because I mean he was right. Like, Laura wasn't about to let him go to prison. Like we are seeing he is going to be bailed out, and there's like layers of like who's going to bail him out. Okay, it's not going to be my dad. Okay, maybe it'll be my Uncle Sonny. Okay, it's not going to be my Uncle Sonny. It'll be my, and then it was right. And so I think that is part of the reason that we're seeing that, but it wasn't as like funny to me to see Nina like arrested because I'm like, is everybody in court? What's gonna happen when we find out if we ever find out that Nicholas shot Hayden? Is he gonna be in court? We've already seen all these court scenes with Cam when he was like in trouble. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I'm kind of over that, and I want to see less of that.
Well, they did just get a new court set, so I don't know if you're gonna get your wish. They're gonna be at the court like they were at the pool this summer.
It's Law and Order season.
Right. And they got to make use of those tax dollars. That's what I was thinking of. It was like, they're wasting our tax dollars having all these court scenes and none of them are actually going to see a jail cell. But but at the same time, we got to use the tax dollars for the new courtroom. So it's like
that PCU.
Right. So it's like
PCU.
Right.
You're just speaking into existence what I don't want to see. I just feel like there are too many extremely flawed characters for people to continue to throw around like accountability through a court. Like it's too much. It's too much. I don't know. What do you want to see less of, Tanya?
I'm still it's still kind of weird to me how the Leo possibly being autistic storyline is not about him being autistic. It's more about how other people feel about him being autistic.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, I to an extent I understand Olivia just being hesitant about, any kind of negativity around the idea of Leo just being Leo. But at the same time, if there's so many people telling you that maybe a specialist might be a good idea. And I'm not a mom, so I don't know. But for me, it's just like, if so many people are telling me one thing, maybe I'll listen. Maybe, and you have the resource. It's not like you're low income and you don't have the resources to do it. And, so that's annoying to me. And the fact that she's using it as a reason to divorce Ned. No, if you don't want to be with Ned, don't be with Ned. You're finding all kinds of reasons not to be. Then don't just walk away. Stop playing with his heart. I know Ned is flawed, but he's trying. And he's trying, yet you just want to throw this in his face. So I want this to be a real story. If they're going to make it a story, make it a real story. So I want to see less of that.
Yeah, my less of is everything that's happening with the Quartermains. So also includes Ned and Olivia. Millo continues to not be interesting to me. I thought Michael was being slightly more interesting than usual. And Willow also in like pushing back against both him and Carly and like kind of feeling that out. Like that was a little bit more interesting, but I still just like I feel like there's so many things in this Quartermain drama that is just like boring rehashes of old Quartermain drama. Oh, there's another heir to ELQ. Well, how many freaking times has that happened? And where they all turn against him and there's drama. It's just like the same kind of boring ass corporate drama. And everyone takes a turn being awful like Edward. And that is like the Quartermain like formula for plot. And I think all the legacy families have their own formulas that they are iterating off of. Like the Cassadines have a very particular kind of formula for the kind of character arcs that they explore. But the Quartermains, it's like all the old rehashing, but with none of the
flair.
Yeah, none of the flair, like none of the like I miss Tracy Quartermain so much, where I felt like she fully committed to the awfulness of being a Quartermain. And I feel like the current Qs are trying to play both sides. They're trying to both be like likable and relatable and like not like those rich people, but also be awful like Edward. And instead of having like characters kind of fully commit to their trajectories, they're always in this weird middle road. And I haven't found the Quartermains interesting in a long time. When we did, I watched some old like Natalia Livingston as Emily videos where she came back on, she arrived as Emily for the first time. And they had one of those like courtroom meltdowns where like everyone was yelling and talking over each other. And I was like, these are the quartermains. This shit that's happening right now, snooze fest. And I really, really continue to dislike the way that they're holding this Ned, Olivia, Leo storyline. I actually really, really dislike this whole like Olivia is irrational and waspy Ned is the one who's being reasonable with Austen. Like, it just rubs me the wrong way. And I think it's just like another way to like redeem Ned when he actually, I'm not interested enough in him for him to be redeemed. And I do think that him and Olivia, I mean, they've been separated for a year. Just end it. But we already know how I feel about that. It's for a little bit different reasons than you said, Tanya, but I'm over it. He's not good enough for Olivia.
I actually forgot what Ned needs to be redeemed for. I was like, what is he? Oh yeah, he did have that affair. That's how boring he is. But to your point, in my free for all notes, I put Brooklyn is not as interesting as her granny Tracy Q.
Yep.
I was gonna say that she's not. It's like I don't feel like, I think they're trying to turn her into Tracy, and it's not quite working.
I think it's also because Tracy was a mess all over the place, and Brooklyn is just a mess, like annoyingly in one place. You know what I'm saying? Like Tracy just like walked and there was just like mess behind her. Like it was a disaster no matter where it was. And like even the thing with Brooklyn and Austen, it was just like annoying. Like her behavior was annoying. I'm interested to see what the fallout will be, and if we will see some a difference in her character once the Bailey storyline comes to a head. Like I feel like that has like some potential to like maybe shake things up for her. But I've actually just been annoyed. I like this actress, but I've been kind of annoyed by Brooklyn since she was actually reintroduced. Just like everything they've had her do seems silly. I keep thinking back to when they had her like fake sing and like nothing actually ever came of it. It was like a one-time thing that she like fake sung a song, and then it's like can she still sing? Is she still hurt? Like what is her whole thing is that she wanted to be a singer, and everything was about that. And we haven't even heard anything about her singing in a year. So yeah, to your point, like the cues, I'm just like, I want them there because they're like such a staple. But the other thing they need is like, they need like a housekeeper door person, like, because that actually keeps a little bit of the story flowing. You remember like when they had Alice, like there was some comic relief and another person to comment. Even this politician that came to visit was like, oh, Michael, I'm really surprised that you're answering your own door. Like that, I think that they need that character to like move them along a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're not going to do a classic storyline deep dive. We're going to do a little reimagining. So I'm going to just toss it to you, Sandra, to talk about it so that we can get into it. I'm excited for it.
Yes. So, where to begin? Well, I think part of what makes daytime soap operas so entertaining is that we have actually like decades of history to draw from. And, that's part of the reason why we do the historical deep dives. Because there is so much material to draw back from, to remind us, and to also see like where the writers have often forgotten or have rewritten what has happened in the past. So there's something about being a daytime soap fan where you also are kind of built in like a historian. And the way that these legacy families and their trajectories are all entangled are such a big part of daytime soaps appeal. And And it also like mirrors our own generational ties to these shows. Like many of us have been watching as part of our own family legacy, right? Of grandparents, parents, and even passing it on to like younger generations. So for those of us who have like watching our stories is tied up in our family legacy, and it's also like watching those on-screen families for years like growing along with us. And so there's something about the familiarity of tropes in soap operas too that are part of the fun, right? Like watching them becoming fluent in the tropes, how they're playing out, making predictions, right? Which is one of my favorites, based on like understanding how tropes function and how that predictability is part of the fun. But there's also a big part of the fun is when we break the rules and we break with tradition. And so we're taken by surprise. And so there's something about that balance between honoring tradition and also like, let's actually break the mold and advance this genre to a new stage. And I think we're talking a lot right now about the future of daytime soaps, right? They're not really attracting new viewers. Their budgets are being slashed. Thankfully, it doesn't really seem like they're on the brink of cancellation after there was that big kind of mass cancellation sweep last decade, which was very nerve-wracking and heartbreaking for many of us. But you know, so it kind of leaves me wondering like how much longer can daytime soaps exist without adapting and changing with the times? And so it's been nice to see soaps like Days experimenting, right? Like they just did Beyond Salem on Peacock, and that had a lot of GH fans like daydreaming about what a Beyond Port Charles could look like. And that's part of the inspiration for this segment. So rather than doing a deep dive into the past, we want to talk about reimagining General Hospital for the future. So how do we honor what we love about the legacy of the show, and also think expansively about how it can adapt for future generations of fans? Like I want the current characters to still be around 10, 20 years from now. So how do we do that in this like new world that we're living in? So to do that, I would love for us to respond to the prompt. What TV show would you use as inspiration for reimagining General Hospital? And like what elements would you like to incorporate and why? I'd like to go first. Tracy, you look ready.
I can go first. Yeah, I really loved this because I think, you know, as a fandom lover and a fan fiction writer, I always am thinking about like, how do we move this beyond? How do we take this into the next generation? And I also think back to like storylines that have been reimagined within our soaps and like things that change with the times. So I think about how like, you know, Luke and Laura was one thing like back in the day when everybody like wanted to like be on, and like Elizabeth Taylor was Helena. And then they were in the 90s, we were like, somebody was like, yo, actually, we got to stop romanticizing this so much. And so they rewrote it, or reestablish like what the legacy of that actual event was. And so the show I immediately thought about was Desperate Housewives, mostly because it already has like a soapy element to it. And what I really loved about Desperate Housewives is it had like friendships and family connections, and that everyone had their own storylines, but there was always a way that something overlapped. So there was always some sort of mystery. There was always some sort of something that brought people together, but you weren't overwhelmed by just one character. Because I do think that that's something that General Hospital is like facing, where there's like one character or a set of characters that are so central, and other characters that people are really interested in who are not at all seen. And that causes like some resentment, and it actually impacts the way people see the storylines. And I also liked that people were complicated. Nobody was all right and nobody was all wrong. I mean, I think that soaps, like, it's fine to like maybe sometimes have like that one person who was like the moral center, maybe, but even that has to be like that has to be a special kind of person. So like in the Quartermains, you had that with like Lila, who I think when we look back, we're like, some of that long suffering shit ain't even cute, right? But then we saw it again in Emily, who had like this really like almost angelic way about her, but she still did. I mean, she still was like not perfect. And so I really appreciated with like Desperate Housewives how characters were complicated, and you got to see their reasoning behind things sometimes, and sometimes they were just a mess, and that was okay. And they had moments of being like super zany, but it was like also really grounded in the characters that you knew. So when somebody did something wild, you were like, oh yeah, that's just Susan, or whoever it was. You like, it wasn't that it stopped them from being wild. It was that you were like, oh yeah, of course. And so even when like Desperate Housewives did that refresh, they brought in Vanessa Williams to be like this kind of over the top, like new housewife. And I was like watching the whole time, and I thought she breathed a lot of new life into the story because she actually came in and leaned into all the tropes. And so that's what I think, that something that I would like to see from GH is like distributing storylines a little bit more equitably, and then like leaning into the tropes. And it's almost like you actually need like a fan or a couple of fans in the writer's room, because there are little pieces of history that are just missed that would make the story so much better. Or like I said earlier with like the Trina thing, like what would it have looked like if Portia would have been like, actually, I told my daughter not to come there. Like, that's not different. And they have dropped so many balls that it's hard to know if something's a drop ball or something they're going to pick up later. And so that's what I got.
Mm-hmm. I'm really feeling that last bit that you said about that. Is this a dropped ball, or is this like an intentional plot point? And I find myself asking that question all the time. Give them a lot of credit, and then sometimes I'm very disappointed.
Most of the time, you've been very disappointed lately.
What about you, Tanya? What are you drawing from?
Yeah, I'm going to admit to our audience, I was having a little bit of trouble trying to figure out how to reimagine GH, especially in the terms that you're thinking about, Sandra, and having it be some really deep and thoughtful thing. For me, these are my tastes in entertainment. I'm either watching General Hospital or I'm watching some sort of sci-fi Marvel thing, or I'm watching cartoons. So what I'm saying, so when you said how to reimagine General Hospital, my mind immediately either went to Star Wars or a cartoon. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm actually thinking that GH would probably be better reimagined into Star Trek versus Star Wars. Because so for those of you who do not watch Star Trek is basically about this crew that's on a ship that goes to different planets, different solar systems, all of this stuff. But it's a crew that are all basically living together on this huge trip, and they all have individual stories, they have dramas, but all of a sudden, all of those stories and dramas come to a head when they're dealing with this resident alien or something like that, right? Or they're coming across a solar system that's going to destroy them. They all kind of have to work together through that solar system or their alien attack or whatever, but then they go back to the initial drama. So they're a family. They're not just strangers on a strip together. And they also kind of focus on certain characters and, what their history is, what their motivations are, what emotional entanglements they have. So all of that could be if General Hospital, the main characters of General Hospital were on Starship Enterprise, going from one galaxy to the next and having to deal with all of the drama that they have while fighting against solar systems and aliens. I think that would be super interesting for me to write. So, because they have a new iteration of Star Trek called Star Trek Discovery, and the main character is actually someone who is part Vulcan and part human, or she was raised Vulcan even though she is human, and so she has Vulcan tendencies about her, but she's navigating the world as a human being. And so and she's Black and African American, but so that she has to go through her history and her emotional entanglements and her boldness and action, and all the while having to navigate the new world. And that is super interesting. And I was thinking, captains, she ends up being a captain, but a captain is someone that is the cast's moral compass in a way, and they're brave and they're all of this stuff. And I was thinking, Laura would be a great captain of a ship like Discovery, because she is kind of the moral compass of the show right now, and she's the leader, and she would fit perfectly in that role. But they also focus on other characters on the show, and so I think it would be great to have all the different characters on the canvas in that kind of new way. It's a little fantastical, but it's fun. I think it would be interesting and hilarious and fun to see that kind of thing happen. And I think there's been a lot of interest right now in science fiction fantasy in the world. And so it's almost like kind of being a little bit relevant, especially now. I mean, we have billionaires just trying to go into space for absolutely no reason, but but it's still, there is an interest in, outside exploration. And I think it would be really funny to see General Hospital go that route.
What if there was a GH space race? Because what other like small town in upstate New York has this many billionaires? And I think,
oh my God, a space race between Jax, the Quartermaids, and the Cassidines. Write it in.
Love it. And I also think it's very much in line with the legacy of the show. Like I really actually wish the show would lean way, way, way more into its sci-fi roots from the 80s. I would actually really love that. And I think it also, it reminds me of what Days is doing with Marlena and the double possession storyline, which I know for me, as someone who was not a consistent Days watcher, but like my Ninang used to watch it. So I was always more of an ABC soap fan, but my Ninang used to watch it. So I would watch it sometimes too. And so I've been catching little clips of it. And I'm going to actually commit to watching at least through this Marlena storyline. So I think there are ways in which like, that was also how, I know Passions was very short-lived, right? But like, it leaning all the way into the supernatural and the weird Timmy shit, it brought a lot of new viewers in. So I think
R.I.P. Timmy.
R.I.P. So I actually feel like there's no need to qualify what you offered. I would watch that. My choice was Elite, which is a teen soap opera on Netflix. It's set in Spain at an ultra elite prep school. And the vibe is very Cruel Intentions meets How to Get Away with Murder. So every season, similar to How to Get Away with Murder, revolves around a mystery. It's usually a murder, complete with flashbacks, plot twists, and layers upon layers of scandal. Outrageous scandal, not just any scandal, outrageous scandal. So like dealing with a drug kingpin mother and her drama, covering up the murders of classmates, seducing your blackmailer. Those are all just another day for the young people of Elite. And I truly love, I love the characters in the current iteration of the GH teen scene, but as we've talked about extensively, they are overwhelmingly wholesome in this current cycle. And I think Esme and Spencer are definitely bringing some of that scandalous prep school energy to town, which is another reason why I felt like Elite was calling to me. And they've marked the group's coming of age. Like we've talked about Spencer representing like coming of age for Trina, but really it's like the scene as a whole is coming of age. But they're still a long way from being outrageously scandalous. And they need to take their mess to the next level and to continue to raise the stakes of their storylines. And on Elite, everyone is very slutty, very, very slutty and very, very messy. Most of the cast embodies what I like to call big pansexual energy. There's just a lot of fluid sexuality. Thruples are extremely common. It's not just like, oh, that one show, they had that throuple that one time. There's like at least 1 to 2 thruples a season. And it's just like, yeah, this is what we do. And it's so wild to me how straight these GH kids are considering they're Gen Zers. Like we haven't had a queer character in this age group. Whereas like, you know, in the past, at least there was like Lucas, right? Lucas coming out as a young adult. So this just doesn't make sense actually statistically for Gen Zers. Gen Zers are like the queerest generation. They have the most fluid ideas around gender and like concepts around gender. Like, is gender even real? And so how kind of like straight-laced and like literally straight the group is very strange. And really, as the show as a whole, with the exception of Terry, is like straighter than it's ever been. You know, it's really like disappointing, and it's actually kind of embarrassing. Like it's embarrassing to me as a queer fan to be watching this show of like, and there's only straight couples to ship. And it makes me think too about back when there was the big 3 ABC soaps. My favorites were usually All My Children and General Hospital, and All My Children often won out because they told the best young adult storylines that were actually sexy, like Greenlee and Leo. And also because of Bianca Montgomery, who is the daughter of Susan Lucci, La Lucci's Erica Kane, and her coming out story. And there were so many problematic things about Bianca's story. A lot of that, which happened, I think, while Agnes Nixon was actually not working on the show. But it was also a really groundbreaking story, and for the time and for the genre. And Agnes Nixon, who is the creator of One Life to Live and All My Children, the queen of soap operas, as she is known, she had to advocate so hard for that storyline to make it happen. And so I think as an aside, I also just wish GH would be more like an Agnes Nixon soap. And take risks in service of storylines that are of the time, and to elevate their queer characters. And they just don't do that, not even for their cis gay men, which is largely like the queer characters on GH. So I would love to see Terry be given a full storyline, including a love story. Terry and Britt have the chemistry to take that kind of risk. And I stand by it. And I think a lot of other people are surprised to stand by it as well. And I would love to have at least one of the current teens come out and have a relationship with a new young queer character to bring another character on. And honestly, I see it for Joss.
I see it for Joss too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Yes, absolutely.
I was, in my sickness watching, and I was like, I kind of ship Joss and Esme a little bit.
Yes.
Like, I was calling it Jessie May because I was looking at Hayes. But like, there is something there. Like, they actually, but yeah, I definitely agree. There's no way these young adults would all be straight. And there's no gender fluidity. There's no, like, nobody's non-binary. Like, there's just nothing. And I fear that they are trying to play towards like this older audience and not doing anything to attract a younger one, when really we've seen that like the two biggest couples that you have right now are Sprita and Vanna. And so people are hungry for something that's like unconventional, right? Like that we're in our 30s and we're shipping like teenagers, right? Like it is, you do not have to have like a heterosexual, both white character couple for people to be like, young, 20s, for that to be like the couple that people care for. Like you can explore beyond that. And it actually is almost irresponsible of them not to explore beyond that.
It is. Yeah, I of course would love for Paulina to come back as Val and pick back up with Val and Chrissy, but like there needs to be a community of more than just queer couples that are dating each other. Like even with when there was Lucas, Brad, and
the other nurse, I forget his name.
It's like I can remember the actor's name, but I can't remember the Felix. See, Felix, I shouldn't forget Felix. Felix should just be around. But like they had actually this like moment where they were discussing, like they were in a love triangle and like it looked like they might have a threesome, and they talked about having a threesome together. I remember this so clearly in my mind. And because I remember just being like, is this really happening? And of course it didn't, because it's of course. But why did Felix just disappear when Brad and Lucas got together? Like they could have all been friends. Like that's actually how queer community works, is that like you date people and then you're friends with them afterwards, and like everyone's dated each other and it's fine. I mean, it's messy and sometimes it's awful, but mostly it's fine. And so I wish that there was more of a network of queers. I also finally, this is my final point. The Cassadines are queer coded villain archetype. Like in my mind, they are all queer in my headcanon. And it's like a very Interview with a Vampire meets the Greek Russian royal family. Like I see it. And so I'd like Christy to have some family members join her as out Cassadines. And I'm gonna also put my money on Alexis, late in life queer romance train. She is the prime candidate for that storyline in the show. In conclusion, make GH more like Elite, sluttier, gayer. No, but seriously, like y'all work with streaming, we are competing with so much other content. GH needs to turn up the heat. And that's what happened.
You were like that Lisa Simpson meme where like, she was like that was like what was happening behind you, and I was into it.
So I feel like that brings us into hot take free for all. Speaking of turning up the heat.
Hot take free for all. Let them fly. Let me pull up my notes.
Yeah, I don't have any notes for the week, so I have to think about this. I did a lot of my hot takes already. What do you think?
Bang all your hot takes in one place.
I know. I gotta. I pepper them throughout the whole conversation, and instead of waiting until the end, I just bring them out there. So, yeah, like the Valentine thing. That was a hot take. That was like, oh. And yeah, definitely I like seeing Valentine in a vulnerable place. I'm liking and looking forward to, but dreading when he finds out that Bailey isn't his. I think it's going to be he's going to be very sad and upset, and maybe it'll cause some drama, but I'm not looking forward to seeing him in pain like that, especially after he's just gotten shot and he's in the hospital. I just know I'm going to be crying all the time. Yes, I cry all the time on soap operas. Never so much on my personal life, but on soap operas I will cry and be bawling. Yeah, so that's when the emotions come out of me watching television. But Tracy, if you already have your list together, go. I'm just filling while I'm waiting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, so some of it is about the show and some of it is about like reacting to the show. I've been seeing all these conversations about like lack of chemistry. And I'm like, so like there was like this conversation that like Sunny and Carly have like a lack of chemistry now. And I'm like, I actually think that's acting. Like that Sunny is really conflicted, that they kind of are re-getting to know each other, that they both had relationships outside of like the core relationship of the two of them. And so they're gonna stumble towards it being messy to them to get back together. Because like both Laura Wright and Maurice Bernard have chemistry with basically everybody. So, and we've seen them, I mean, like, yeah, and we've seen them have chemistry with each other. So I think that it's just like a very weird thing to think that just because they're like awkward now, that there's like a chemistry thing. I think it's more of an acting thing. The Leo storyline is playing out. I said like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago that this is exactly the way I did not want it to play out. That these shenanigans are overshadowing like what could be a really beautiful and powerful story to tell about like about autism. And Sandra, to Sandra's point, I mean, I have this like written as well, like so we're on the same wave. I hate that Ned gets to look like the reasonable one. And it actually, for me, is not true to Olivia's character that she wouldn't take care of her child. Like we've seen Olivia like knock down doors for Dante. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like she's done so much for her kids in the past to pretend like she wouldn't do everything possible to get Leo anything possible actually is not an interesting enough or realistic enough story for me to like, yeah, it's just not interesting or realistic enough. And it actually makes Olivia look really bad, which I don't like. Because I have a list of like people on my nerve this week. And it was Nina, Willow, BLQ, Olivia, Jason, that's evergreen. Nicholas, also evergreen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just like, I was like, I disliked more people this week than I liked because they just have them doing wild shit. I hate that like Sam and Dante are getting like kind of pulled away from their adventure for like Drew or for Jason to be the person who goes to get Drew. I'm like, give that to my girl Sam. There was also like this conversation about Jay Sam. Like, I mean, I will say, granted, their chemistry has not been the same since Steve came back. But there were like these stills that were going around, and like I hadn't watched the episode yet. And so I was like looking at these stills, like, oh my God, was the conversation that awkward? And then I like watched it, I'm like, oh, y'all just got like really bad angles. And so they are not, the chemistry is not there, but I would have still like a throwback to them doing something together that's like within their wheelhouse. It doesn't have to be romantic, but they are like co-parents, kind of. Jason remembers he has kids. And like Drew is Jason's brother, he's Sam's ex. Like it could have been cool to like see them do something together. Because I don't even see how much of this has actually advanced like the romance, their prospective romances with other people. So I just feel again like that's how I'm always like, it feels like there needs to be like a fan or somebody who knows the richness of these stories in the room, or like a historian, like not like there needs to be a fan who is a writer to like reframe things to be like, what if we did this? Because we are just losing all of that. Oh, and then Spencer had this like line that just broke my heart when he was talking to Sunny. And Sunny was like, you know the lesson? And Spencer was like, I already know the lesson. People leave. And I was like, this is Mom, an apologist. Like, it's okay, Spencer. And finally, why are people acting like that child should not have pled not guilty? All these people know how court works. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, of course he would have. I just hate the idea that like what accountability looks like for him is through like maybe going to jail, maybe from what accountability from people who have never been accountable looks like is like for him to go to jail. No. That's actually, and then to pretend like he should just like lean into, I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way. It didn't make a lot of sense. I wasn't here for it. Those are my takes.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, it's hard for me because I kind of take it as accountability in real life and not so much how everyone else is feeling that Nicholas should be accountable. It's for me, I personally feel that he should be accountable because I think sometimes young white men get away with doing way too much in this world. Yeah, Spencer, sorry. And so I feel like he should be accountable for his actions, but I also think, you know, Nicholas as his dad should be accountable for his actions, and he should really think about how what he has done as a parent to impact his child, and that he's not taking any of that seriously. Like you said, people keep thinking about how he was a father to Spencer as a young kid, but his current actions is what's affecting Spencer today. And that means a lot to me personally, because I've had that same experience with my own father. It's like, I don't care what you did when I was a child, but what you're doing to me now is hurtful and it's impacting my life. And Nicholas needs to understand that. And he doesn't. And that's kind of pissing me off too. But on the same level, I keep thinking outside of myself that this is a show. This is a program. This is not real. And so I can't, you know, it's hard for me not to visit my own personal, you know, issues onto this program. And yeah, so part of me, it's like, I'm kind of pissed at Nicholas on a personal level, but I'm excited about Ava on a character level, because I just love her as a character and I want her to be messy and I want her to get in the middle and get her revenge on Spencer and all of that. But you know, it's interesting, you know, how to react to a show that mixes, you know, fiction with real life, you know, and how to react to that. It's you know, weird, like, because I know it's a fictional show, but at the same time I want them to understand how race plays a part in dealing with the criminal justice system and who gets away with crimes and who doesn't. You know, I want that to happen. Yeah, I don't quite know how to navigate that yet, but you know, that's part of life, I guess.
I too have feelings about Spencer and accountability and the way that he pled. I definitely think he should have pled not guilty. That was the right move. I mean, it's the right move in general, but I think it's also the right move from like a plot place. Everyone was telling him to plead guilty, and but for what reasons? That felt very unclear, right? I guess Neva wanted him to plead guilty to prove that he felt bad. So you're going to let your son plead guilty to these charges and have them be on his record because you want him to know, you want him to admit that he was wrong. He can do that without pleading guilty. The public defender, we need to be, I agree with Tracy, like we do need to have a more nuanced conversation about public defenders. I did appreciate though that they were just like, it was kind of like peeling back the curtain of like, actually, yes, public defenders do have like 12 cases they have to defend in a day. And they often just have the time that they're meeting with their client to prepare. And so that is going to impact your defense. I'm interested to see if they'll continue with him with the public defender. That was like actually a piece that really upset me. I was just like, y'all, it's like actually the privilege of the adults in Spencer's life that's showing here if they think it's okay for this kid, his life to be blown up because they're gonna like make him have a public defender when he could very easily have a good attorney and still go through the process. Not to say that the public defender is bad, but she already didn't know that he like who he was right? Which is the foundational for winning a case. And Esme, why does Esme want him to plead guilty? I don't think she has the most to lose by them moving forward with the trial. Because the more, if he pled guilty and they just went straight to sentencing, they wouldn't have to rehash her involvement in blowing up Ava's car. And so when Spencer, at first I was like, oh, you just doing this to spite everyone. And that was like the vibe I got. He looked at Ava, all those things happened. But when he actually explained, he's like, something in my gut told me. It was his instincts that told him to plead not guilty. And I was like, you know what, Spencer? You follow those instincts. I think they're right. I don't necessarily think they're right because of Ava, which is like where his mind was going, but like I think they're right because of Esme. And so I'm really hoping that this leads to Esme actually being exposed. And that's the reason why, even if he's not doing it consciously, that's actually what his instincts were telling him to do. Also on the Esme note, it was so weird how Ava was so nice to Esme. Like, even if you think Spencer put her up to this, like, I don't think Ava would be that nice to her. So that just felt weird and out of character. Like, if Sunny is gonna be like, I'm clear on what it is that you tried to do, which was a great line. I need that same kind of energy from Ava. And so that I'm interested to see how their future interactions go and if that will end up having something to do with Ryan, as it always does. I'm also looking forward to Spencer being poor. That's a complete sentence. I can't wait. And Mystery Man, interesting. Actually, no, I want to talk about that during predictions. I love that Robert never pronounces people's names correctly. It's such a a boss move, you know? It's like something that you do to really like, I know some of it's just his weird Australian accent, but also some of it is just him being an ass, like him calling Victor Vicky. And you know, y'all know I love to nickname people, but I try to like do it responsibly, because once you nickname someone and it sticks, that's power. And Robert really shows that here. But I also just loved all the Robert, Anna, Valentine, and Victor scenes, just like these veteran actors just having the time of their lives. You could just tell that they're having so much fun with each other. And I love that like my favorite scenes are like the oldest characters on the canvas and the youngest. So it's not even just the couples, it's just like the ensembles. And so they actually got, because the teens were kind of meh without Trina, to be honest, they got the Ensemble of the Week award, which is apparently something that I do now.
Yeah, actually, I agree with you as far as the guilty verdict. I was a little confused on it too, because it seemed like everyone really just wanted Nicholas to do what Nicholas and everyone wanted Spencer to do what Nicholas and Ava wanted him to do. And it didn't seem like they were focused on the guilty, not guilty act. And then when he did, like you, when he did plead not guilty, I was thinking, oh, so this means that Esme is going to be outed because there's going to be witnesses and all this good stuff. And there's no way that they can hide her part in this. And I also, you know, I'm really wanted to get at the question. I was wondering last week, what does this mean if Spencer is spending the night in jail? Where is Esme going? Where was she that night? You know, who did she spend the night with? Was she on the streets? What, I mean, and remember when Kevin was talking to Spencer about, okay, we're going to pay your bail, and that means that you're going to have to live with this. Esme was like, yes, that's fine with me. I'm like, bitch, no one invited you to the house. How are you just going to invite yourself over to Lauren's house? I mean, what does that mean? I'm like, I was hoping Kevin was going to be like, actually, there's some ground rules. Esme can't come with you. You know, that is like, having Esme automatically being able to stay with Kevin and Laura seems really strange to me. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, really, why are people just allowing her to just tag along? I mean, I know it's his girlfriend, but still, my mama would not have let me have a man over my house, over her house, when I was just 18. And they did establish that they are 18. So it's weird to me that she feels that she can just be with Spencer wherever he goes. And I want the show to address that.
Yeah, I mean, she did say something about like that she couldn't get the money released from her trust fund because whatever. And so I'm wondering if they'll flip back to that. And then the other thing about the like pleading guilty is that nobody has made any type of deals. So like it would be one thing if like a DA had said, okay, Spencer, if you plead guilty, you'll get to avoid some jail time and blah, 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 which is what like a paid attorney could like work out for you. But like, that's not what happened. So that's what I'm saying. Like the whole accountability piece makes absolutely no sense. We've already actually seen what happens when you plead guilty to something. Like, do you want Spencer to like end up in jail like Alexis? Like we've already actually seen this play out. And so it further doesn't make any sense. And then as far as the public defender thing, I mean, I think that it continues to be interesting to me when people don't know who Cassadines are. So like, I thought it was a little bit unbelievable that Trina like didn't know who Spencer was. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, he's like friends with your friends and he's like a Cassadine. It's really interesting that you wouldn't know who he is, but okay, I'll suspend disbelief because I like this little coupling. But like an attorney, it would have, for me, I would have like liked her to look at it and been like, Cassadine, why am I like, what are you talking about? And then like actually being like annoyed that like, you know, she actually has like a full caseload because public defenders are so overworked and she got to play around with like these like rich people in the courtroom with her. That I think would have been like an interesting and compelling thing to see instead of like, oh, look at me, I'm so overworked, I forgot my right file. Like, no, let's actually do something that's meaningful.
Yeah, there's been like instances where the court is just like, I'm sick of all you rich people coming into court and doing this stuff and playing games with the system. And I was thinking about Michael's trial, right? When, you know, Michael pled guilty and they all expected him to get off, right? Like a lighter sentence and stuff like that. But that didn't happen. And yet, so now again, here are these rich people kind of playing with the system right now because with Spencer and, you know, leaving him to fend for with a public defender when they easily could have just paid it out and done something. And it's kind of like wasting taxpayer dollars to try to raise this child right now, because that's essentially what you're doing. He did something bad, and instead of just, you know, dealing with the consequences personally, they're playing it out through the court system. And so it's an interesting dynamic. And if I compare all the other kids that have gone to court, they've all had lawyers and all the parents took care of it. You know, Elizabeth, she didn't have all that money, but she had Scotty play lawyer for Cameron. But, you know, instead they're just leaving Nicholas or Spencer to, you know, blow with the wind. So hard.
Yeah. Those are hot takes. And I actually don't have any predictions because I just wait for Sandra's. So Tanya, I don't know if you have any, and then we'll, you know, I guess it's almost like a bookend. Like I do the recap. Sandra's like, what's your predictions? Tell us.
Yeah. Tell us what your predictions are, Sandra. I mean, I would throw out that maybe, you know, Stranger is Curtis's dad. Because he seems very more focused on Curtis. I would predict, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think the court scene's going to go out for a while, which I don't understand. I mean, other than outing Esme, I don't understand what they can bring up in court that's different than what we already know. And yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, I'm thinking that Drew Lavery is in on the plot somehow. Like, I don't think he's actually being brainwashed right now. That's my guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think that mystery man, what were you calling him, Tracy?
Cat Daddy. I forget. Cat Daddy something.
Is it weird that we don't remember what his name is? Because he did say
they gave us a name.
They
haven't given us a name.
Didn't he give a name when he was in the hospital? Marshall something. Yeah.
At the hospital. I think he's Curtis's daddy, and therefore Trina and TJ's granddaddy. And he'll play some part in Trina's paternity reveal. What part? I don't know. But those things coming all at once, right? Curtis was telling the story about his dad, how his dad never came home. He had the massive heart attack. As soon as he said that, I was like, oh, Curtis Daddy is coming to the show then. And then literally the next scene was Mystery Man showing up. And I was like, oh, we're doing this right now. Oh, great. Love the pacing on that. Do that.
Daddy Snooper is what I said.
Cat Daddy Snooper. Can't forget that one. We gotta hold on to that one. So Valentine, Anna, and the Cassidines. We have more hospital angst ahead as Vanna returns to Port Charles. Likely Victor will be joining. And I'm curious about what all of this means for Nicholas, who is still more connected to Greece. We found out this week than he has led people to believe, right? He has people still on his payroll there. So how involved is he involved? Does he know about what's been going on with Victor? ... I would love if, this is to riff off Tanya, I would love if Valentine convinced Spencer to join him in taking down Nicholas. And the way that he entices Spencer to do that is by getting this kid a real lawyer. Get this kid a real lawyer. A real money lawyer. I'm tired of it. Please do not send Spencer in there with the public defender. It makes me so nervous. I still think Trina is going to talk to Ava about showing mercy on Spencer. I thought it would be in advance of the arraignment, but we have 6 weeks, whatever that means in GH time, I don't know. But we have 6 weeks until the pretrial begins. So I'm hoping there's space for this conversation, even if it doesn't lead to the actual mercy. But I also feel like Portia and Ava's conversation was also teeing that up as well to show Ava starting to doubt her decision. You could see when she was talking to Portia that she was surprised Portia disagreed with her and was processing it. So Esme's control over Spencer is dwindling, right? He again is doing the opposite of what she tells him to do, which it's the smartest thing he's done this whole time besides, being to Trina. And so she's going to keep making bolder moves as her control over Spencer dwindles. And I think also her campaign to break up chaos, Cameron and Jocelyn, is going to start in earnest next week. It's time. I predict that Trina and Joss are going to team up to prove that Esme was the actual mastermind behind the stalking. And I think that's part of what's going to happen between now and the pretrial. Especially there's so much talk about Spencer and Esme as a team, Joss and Trina as a team. Well, I'm ready to see more Joss and Trina as a team because it's my fave. And this is going to put Joss and sweet, simple Cameron at odds. And I think probably Spencer at first too. But he's going to end up seeing the truth about Esme. Hopefully sooner rather than later. And yeah, again, I'm just really glad Spencer listened to his instincts about pleading guilty. Well, there's something about what he said that rang very true. And even though it's for slightly the wrong reasons. And yeah, that we're going to have an Esme reveal as a mastermind, and maybe possibly some other reveal between then and now that might motivate Spencer to actually, I would love for Spencer to join in on trying to get Esme outed or as the true villain that she is. That might be too much though. I don't know if he's quite that bright, but I have faith in him. And Esme is going to start her Spring Ridge internship soon. And again, her behavior is going to escalate. And I think we're going to see some much more dangerous and sinister versions of Esme in November sweeps. We saw like the plotting one. They've actually been playing her very kind of like sincere in moments these last couple weeks, with like seeming like genuinely concerned about Spencer, and then she does something that's a little but I think that I think we're gonna really start to see like what she's made of very soon, and I'm so excited because I'm actually getting kind of tired of this back and forth between Spencer, like her doing something really awful, Spencer defending her. Like I'd like to change it up a little bit and actually see her do something really indefensible. Mm-hmm. And yeah, those are my predictions.
Yeah, I was thinking about what you said, especially when it came to Sunny, thinking about when they were in court and Spencer was like, she can stay. And then Ezra was like, no, I'll leave. Like even being defiant there. And then the outfit that she had on in court, like gave me, it was giving the crazy white girl from Get Out. At the end where she was like doing the milk with the separate from the cereal, that was like the same vibe in that outfit with the ponytail and everything. So I was like, I mean, I don't know if their department is that perceptive, but that's what it was giving me.
It was also giving me knockoff Chanel made from like quilting fabric at Walmart vibe, but that was definitely the quality issue and probably not intentional, I think.
Yeah, she doesn't necessarily dress like a wealthy person.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way that like rich white people like to dress like they're on the prairie sometimes, you know. I can see that. Like I can see that being like the kind of like style, like that's like a real thing that rich white people do. But I think this outfit, there are like other outfits that she's had that I'm like, yeah, I could see someone rich wearing that, but like that outfit was like, oof, it was bad. It's like,
yeah, I mean Spencer's not necessarily wearing expensive clothes, but he dresses like he's a prep school person. Like he grew up rich. Like he always wearing like polo shirts or like a blazer or something like that. And they may not necessarily be Ralph Lauren or something, but he looks like he dresses like he's too good for everybody. So I think it's interesting.
I actually think they make him a little too preppy.
Yeah.
Like it's like he's like too preppy to be a Cassadine sometimes. Like I'm like I'm looking for some more dark Prince looks, and also they need to like steam his clothes between takes because that blazer that they've had him in the last 3 weeks was wrinkled before he went to jail. I understand him looking rumpled after jail, but he was looking like that before.
But he was also, well, yeah, I don't know if he took all of his clothes with him when Nicholas kicked him out, but it's almost like he's wearing the same clothes to kind of indicate that he's not in a stable position in his life right now. Like,
I think it's also just the same day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been the same day since he's had that outfit on. Well, and then he was like in jail overnight. Like it made sense for him to look the way that he did in court, but I'm like, it's a steamer. You go, they're portable. I'm just like trying to give the GH wardrobe department as many tips as possible. I know I'm being super rude right now, but I'm tired of it.
Yeah, and Brooklyn is back in the blazer. That blazer.
Let our beautiful soap actors like shine. Please,
yes.
let them shine in real clothes.
Cut the hair. We're out of the pandemic, or at least on the show. So cut the hair, Michael.
They were never in a pandemic.
Yeah, that's true, huh?
So yeah, that's where we're at.
Well, y'all, this was number 7. Lucky 7.
Wow.
My chip nails. I'm like, get that little kid there. So tomorrow, well, it'll be tomorrow for us. Sandra and I are doing the Sabrina event, and of course, we will report back. But other than that, thanks for joining us like one more time. I can't believe that people are still here, but I'm really glad they are.
Yay! Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.